Hey guys, Arthur here, and what am I doing, you ask? Well, I'm trying to get my pink sponge working because I've been tasked by Pretendo, the real Pretendo, I know, it's crazy, to make a new launch title for the new Nintendo Classic XL Pro. And I mean, I've got nothing. No new ideas are coming to me. Nothing new, only old ideas. Why use new ideas when you've got 40 years already backed up? I mean, Pokemon did it. Twice. Yeah. Video game remakes. They're a tricky one. Sometimes the games can be a great way to restore and improve old classic games, but most of the time, they're just rushed and unfinished and cash grab. So then, let's take a look at this wide genre of unique games. First up, let's take a look at a game that was released just last year for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. This was the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, which is also releasing in September for Nintendo Switch. This game is a remake of the original trilogy of Spyro games that were released for the PlayStation 1 in 1998, 1999 and the year 2000. These games are the main titles people think of when talking about the PS1, so people were pleased with the finished project. This could be proven as, on IGN, it had been given an 8.5 out of 10. Too much Spyro, not enough Dragon. Most of the songs are remix versions from the original games, with a few new songs made by composers from Spyro, Year of the Dragonfly. Players across the world are ecstatic to see these games put back into limelight once again. But there was some, well not hate, but disliking going towards the game and Toys for Bob, the developers. This was because people felt the games were slightly diverted from the original and didn't have the same 8 out of 9.5, too much Dragon, not enough Spyro. Crash Bandicoot and the Insane Trilogy is a similar remake kind of thing as the Spyro. This game includes the first 3 Crash games, Crash Bandicoot Warped, and Crash Bandicoot Cortex Strikes Back. Maybe not in that order. These 3 games were made between 1996 and 1998. This game pulls to the old courses and adds considerable upgrades from the time. This remake was done by Activision when they bought the rights so they could continue the series. This attempt at Crash is considered the best from Activision after the failure of Mind Over Mutant and his appearance in Skylanders. This game was considerably better than what people were expecting, and 95% of people enjoyed it, according to Google. And this is the 8th best-selling PS4 game, with over 2.5 million copies sold. It won many awards, but the main award for classical game revival. Hearing that makes it look an amazing game, and rightfully so. Many were happy to allow the new game arrival to play a masterpiece. It is shown across the board that this remake was wanted and gladly accepted by the Crash community. Because of its large success, Activision and the developer Beanbox have decided to give the same treatment to another beloved PS1 game, Crash Team Racing. The game wasn't just the first 3 games with communicative paint, they added extra details and stages that were fairly similar to the first game, so that new players could differentiate in different levels from each other. As an extra bonus for the remake, they released 2 new levels, Future Tense and Stormy Ascent, both of which are inspired by 2 unreleased levels. Overall, this is a very good remake, and this is the level of quality that all other remakes should aspire to. But right now, I'm just going to go try out the 2 new levels, Stormy Ascent and Future Tense.
1 hour later.
This game's trash! 9 out of 9.5 Aku Akus. The Legend of Zelda is a largely beloved series about a boy called... a princess called Zelda, and a wizard named Gamblegorg. Over the years, the series has continued to impress people over and over again with stellar games hitting the market, with it being one of Nintendo's greatest franchises. It is no surprise that it has seen many remakes. The Game Boy Advance is very guilty because when it comes to Zelda remakes, 3 out of the 4 Zelda games on the handheld were the remakes. These include The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, Zelda 2: Link's Adventure, and The Legend of Zelda. These games were literally just the original games, but on the GBA. Some differences include widescreen and on the go. These games are changed and do look sort of different, but aren't popular remakes like with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. 4 out of 9.5. These are literally just ports. Finally, in 2011, Nintendo saw the mistakes and full-on remade 2 N64 titles, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time and The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. This was risky as these 2 games are some fan favourites, especially Ocarina. Luckily, both games were a success when it comes to ratings, but personally I feel they should have waited to do these. The 3DS was of course doing great at the time, and in most people's eyes, better than Nintendo's Wii U, except I don't think it was powerful enough to deserve the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. I thought Nintendo should have waited a little longer, or maybe even brought the game just to have a full upgrade with modern controls and for it to be on the big screen. This is highly deserved from Ocarina, as it's such an epic adventure. Not all things surrounding these remakes are bad though. The game overall was obviously better looking than the original, and there are some minor changes added like touchscreen, ease of access for Ocarina songs, and of course the big one, 3D? Oh! Of course, looking back, I don't think the 3DS's 3D was that impressive, of course. When we first bought the system, we look at it, turn it on and think, neat, and then switch it off again. But that's the biggest change apart from the graphics. After all, they did have the tagline 3D. Later on in 2015, Nintendo pulled something like their Magic Hat and remade one of the most underrated Zelda games and turned it into a timeless classic, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD. This game was released for the Wii U and looks absolutely fantastic. You can see that love and care was put into this game just by looking around at the surroundings. The graphics, textures and UI have all been updated to a crystal clean HD. To crystal clean HD, and it looks like the game made this year. The changes that were made were welcome ones too. They range from use of the gamepad for your inventory and fishing. This is how to pull off a remake. I mean, it's the golden shrine that every other remake should live up to. The love and care that you can see was put into this game. It's just truly amazing, and it's so intense, it feels like the water is coming right at you. There are a couple more Zelda remakes, but I'll leave those for another time. So the Hedgehog is often a franchise overloading their games with nostalgia. We see this in Sonic Generations just being Sonic Generations. Everything about that game was nostalgia. And the Sonic Force is also including classic Sonic for whatever reason. Seeing as Sonic Mania came out the same year, and it's basically just nostalgia of the video game. I mean, just go to nostalgia in the dictionary and you'll see Sonic the Hedgehog right there, look, see? However, one thing they don't often milk nostalgia of is the Sonic Adventure series. Yes, they do sometimes port the game onto other systems, however, they do that with nearly all Sonic games, the classic Sonic games especially being on basically every single console with some remakes, just, scattered here and out. These are mainly victim because when Sega stopped making consoles after the Dreamcast era, they started to focus on third-party developments and decided to port their games to all other hardware than wasn't Sega consoles. Even less known Sonic games, the Sonic Art and the 8-bit Sonic games have been ported into other consoles with things like the Sonic Gems collection, Mega collection, and so on. I mean, Sonic games are important to the console market, kind of to build a wall to stop you from getting in. However, one thing they don't often do are remakes. And the highly requested remake that fans want are the Sonic Adventure series. These games are good, but time has not been nice to these games, especially the first one. At the core, it's a good game, however, there's a few rough edges that a remake could fix, just to make these games much better. Even in a talk on Retro Gamer, Takashi Iizuka stated that the game has some rough edges and that makes him want to remake it again. This is definitely in the realms of possibility. Now this interviewer seems to be strictly talking about Sonic Adventure, so there isn't too much confirmation on an Adventure 2. The game's into a duology about like Crash and Spyro remix instead, with just 2. I mean, they could include Sonic Heroes as the game as a continuation story-wise, although the gameplay between the games are completely different. This will cause some trouble due to having to make 2 different gameplay styles fit into the collection with ease, and without it confusing new players. They also have to change some models in which is the different designs between them, however I think it would be great to see these games remade, sorting out the problems present in the originals and creating a much better experience. One remake I would like to quickly mention is a fan-made one called Sonic 2 HD. This game is a full remake of the original game, but without any major gameplay tweaks. Instead, took the original Sonic games, 16-bit art style, and replaces everything textured, including GUI and menus, into colourful, vibrant textures, and look painted and coloured. It truly looks phenomenal. You should definitely check it out. Link down below. All Stars is a bit of a weird one, as it is a mixture between a remake and a game compilation. The original came out for the SNES in 1993 to 1995, depending where you lived, as a compilation of all previous Mario games, including the American and Japanese version in Mario 2, titling the Japanese version The Lost Levels, and this was the first time that this game was ever featured in the West. However, it also remade these Mario games of old with updated graphics, sounds, and adding a save feature to the source. They also eventually made a version including Mario World as part of a bundle with a change of colour and logo for some reason. It was a pretty cool concept, although I would have preferred if they included both the new and original versions of the game, so both sides of the player spectrum would be happy. A Wii version of the game did release to celebrate Mario's 25th anniversary in 2010. However, this version isn't really as much of a remake, as much of just a port for the Wii. Nothing much of value was added to the actual game, and all that was really added was a cool box, a little Mario history booklet, and an audio CD including some Mario tracks. Overall, this release is pretty disappointing. I mean, where the hell is my Hotel Mario representation? Come on, Nintendo, you should do better than this. If such a new version of the game were to release, Nintendo should really add some new features and games to the collection. Maybe include a new Super Mario Bros. Games, at least have some of them. You know, maybe excluding the Wii U version, seeing as that just got the deluxe treatment. Now remake the old games of old with updated graphics like they did with the original. Maybe in the new style, however that's a little generic now, so maybe go through a 30-bit looking style, like what Sonic Mania did. Or change the style to look akin to that of Odyssey, or maybe even the painted Swampland, that one level from new Super Mario Bros. U, where nearly everyone agrees that's how the whole game should have been styled. Or maybe even the Strikers box art style from the Wii days on GameCube. Or even the Yuji Katabi classic looking Mario style. The possibilities are really endless. They should include more extra features such as a music room to listen to all the classic and remade tracks. Maybe the mini games and a few more from the new Super Mario Bros. DS. Just as a little side content, should definitely include the option to switch between the remade and classic versions of the game. There is so much that could be done to make this feel like a great and loving collection of games, but I feel like they've only scratched the surface with the re-release of Super Mario All-Stars. I mean, maybe due to limited hardware specs, but still, nowadays there's so much that could be done. I mean, the Kirby collection included a full-on music room, and collections and pictures of old games. I mean, come on, Nintendo. So what have we learned? Remakes can be so good, and they can also be really bad, but I mean, sometimes they can be filled with so much love and passion and a true tribute to the original game. And only one thing is troubling my mind. Why on earth did Nintendo think it was a good idea to make Super Mario 64 with a D-pad? Makes sense. Hey guys, Arthur here, and oh boy I'm excited! You see, the other day I ordered this blind bag of art off eBay, and I must be gonna pay £500 for this sucker! Here it is! Here it is, guys, a big unboxing. Wait, oh, see, it must be art. It says right here, art. Come on. It's just box art for the Master System. Well, on the bright side, at least I have something for the shredder. Over the years, there's been much debate over whether video games and their contents can be classed as art. I mean, if trash can be art, then surely trash can be art. One thing surrounding video games that is obviously art is, of course, the box art. I freaking love it when box art represents the game in all its worth and not just slapping a buff male holding a gun on it. I mean, take a look at the box art for a Super Mario Odyssey. At the front we see Mario throwing Cafe behind him, postcardy looking images showing off the travel that we're going to experience, and him just coming at you with the cap, and that is truly emphasising the fun and adventure of this game. And then we have Exhibit B, also known as Please Leave. I mean, what is this supposed to represent? Have they even played Mega Man? I mean, I guess they couldn't really depict great images of this, really, but why does this exist? Who thought this was a good idea and gave it the go-ahead? Okay, yeah, let's just put ugly. But now let's take a look at some of the best box art from the 3rd to 7th generations of console, as this is when video games really took off and the 8th generation is basically the same as the 7th generation. And it is the... Today we're going to use my trademarked 4.75 scale, because last time I got a bit of a fine, because I used the 9.5 scale, so now I'm going to use the next best thing. First off, let's go back to the NES area, and for the first half of its life, I feel Nintendo did a pretty good job with these boxes. They chose to go the route of using the sprites of the game instead of trying to draw out what they thought the game would look like, but really it would look nothing alike. One bad example though would be Cluku Land. I mean, how would anyone know what the game was supposed to look like from this, or even how it would play? But overall the style was pretty good, but it did limit the creativity of the boxes. The next half of the NES's lifespan, they changed up the box art to drawings of the game, instead of using sprites. This maybe due to the fact that NES could display more of what the creators imagined as they had learned the ins and outs of the hardware. Some good examples include Super Mario Bros. 3, The Legend of Zelda, Tetris, Kirby, and Super Mario Bros. 2. These were actually really neat drawings and represented kind of what the game was. In the Super Mario Bros. Games, 2 represents the different environments and shows Mario running around, having fun, pulling the vegetables out the floor, and number 3 shows off the new mechanic in the game, the raccoon suit. Tetris has a drawing of the gameplay, Zelda has a picture of a shield representing adventure, and Kirby has the best out of the bunch, and the design is so good, and it's pretty funny too. It's showing off Kirby's main ability in a fun and enjoyable style. This is personally my favourite box art from the entire console. In the 3rd generation of consoles, there was only one other console, or this hunk of junk. But in all seriousness, this is a fairly good console with some epic games like Sonic Pinball. Anyway, the Sega Master System did astonishingly bad with its box art. What the name of Robotnik were they trying to do here? Make their game seem boring, scare off the consumers? If the goal was to do that, then it succeeded. I mean, I never want to go near one of these things. Sega decided to take part in the math classes this year and put red lines on the box art of nearly all of their games. I mean, there are a few exceptions, of course, like the Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, but I just don't get why they went with these horrid clip art designs at first. They just looked ugly and bland. At the end of its life, they changed over to pictures and drawings.
These did look pretty nice, some honourable mentions being Spider-Man Return of the Sinister Six and Back to the Future 3.
This generation started off kind of bad box art wise, but towards the end started to get a bit better, and led to a step in the right direction, especially the NES. I give this a 2 out of 4 3/4. It just doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. Again, in this generation, the main 2 competitors were Nintendo and Sega, and oh boy do I love the box art from this generation. This is when this started to look like this. The box art is, but for every Yoshi's Island there is a rival turf. The SNES box art definitely had some bad games, but Jesus, the main Nintendo games had some great box art. Yoshi's Island, Super Metroid, Donkey Kong Country, and the best one, Super Mario All-Stars. All of these games had great looking box art. My main problem with the SNES box art was that any video games based on movies or TV shows just used the generic images in the movie. Apart from that though, the SNES had some great designs, especially the actual design around the art. Every box had the SNES logo and the Nintendo seal quality on the edges, and the consistency makes me scream! Both the PAL and US versions were roughly the same, but the Japanese boxes opted for an upright box instead. My favourite example of where this looks better is the Japan box art for Super Mario World. It looks so nice and a lot more interesting than just a blue empty background. It looks like a fun adventure and shows off the world and the background as well. It's beautiful. The Sega Genesis, or the Mega Drive as it's known in the UK, had some pretty cool box art. Like Nintendo had drawings of the games and these actually look good. They all look like the game with the same Sega logo with either the Genesis or Mega Drive, and only a few opted in for the ugly awards. There's not too much to say about these box arts, apart from a few of my honourable mentions, they being all of the Sonic box arts from Japan. Oh, didn't I mention these? Oh boy, are these things a beauty. These pop art and wacky shapes just represent Sonic so well, and when Sonic on these boxes doesn't look like idiot 1, 2, or 3. They just pop fun and adventure and represent Sonic as he was when he was a true gaming mascot that is worth my time. 4 out of...
This generation had some cracking box art, especially those hand-drawn ones from Nintendo themselves. They didn't just look like the game, they looked good.
4 out of 4.75s, these represent the best form of box art. The 5th generation of consoles, also known as the dawn of 3D games. This era of games saw the end of the drawn box art, even though it had just come in. This generation had consoles like the N64, the Sega Saturn, and the PS1. Yep, finally Sony dipped their toes into the console market. Wahoo! Like usual, let's take a look at Nintendo's offerings first. These look kind of...
I know, I'm a hacking maniac!
Most of these just use 3D models of characters from the games, but they don't even represent what the games actually are. I mean, if I was to pick up Super Mario 64 and see Mario on the front, I'd be like, holy cow, that's amazing! I'll load up the game and see... this? What? The models are just so different. Usually Nintendo have been very good with their offerings of box art, but their main games just didn't really hold a candle to the classic drawn box arts. Some box arts I do love from this generation though are Super Smash Bros, Paper Mario, and the 2 Legend of Zelda games on the system. The Smash Bros box art has so much charm and doesn't feel like a fake out. It shows cartoon versions of our favourite Nintendo characters duking it out, which is what the original was. Just Nintendo characters kicking the life out of each other. Paper Mario is probably my favourite box art for the system. It tells us, oh, this isn't a normal Mario game. We can see right off the bat Mario, Bowser and a Goomba, but all of them are surrounded by Mario characters, but not as you remember them. They each have a different personality and different traits. For example, the flying cubicle called Parakarry Mario has a completely different, unique outfit. It just shows us, hey, this is not a normal Mario game. The logo as well doesn't feel generic, as if it was like a real sheet of paper. And I know this might sound a bit weird talking about every detail on this box, but it does look different compared to this. So yeah, Nintendo didn't do too well this time around, but I can forgive them for this, as they wanted to emphasize the 3D aspect of their system. What I can't forgive is Sega reusing the Sonic 3D box art, even though it's on a completely different system. What I can't forgive is Sega saying this is okay. Sorry guys, I just can't talk about the Sega Saturn too much, as I don't know much about it, and judging from this, I really don't want to. The one good box art I could find was this box art for Rayman, and this is even original to the platform. Disappointing, Sega.
Bruh.
The PlayStation 1, Sony's first console, has some of the best games of that era. This sadly didn't stop it from following the trend of bad box art. I mean, Spyro and Crashes are okay, they do look pretty nice with the main character front and center doing cool and adventurous stuff. But they didn't have many original ideas for the box art, and they just followed the trend of slap a 3D model on it. Overall, this generation is pretty poor when it comes to box art, as they just slapped a good 3D model on the front, sometimes not even good, and it doesn't even represent the actual game. This is where box art starts to change. You see, games are more widely released across multiple platforms, and we get games like this. So, with this generation going onwards, we will take a look at the only original IPs and games on the system, also known as AAA titles. So I'm going to rate each company's box art individually. Starting off, let's take a look at my favourite Cube of Wonders, the GameCube. Now, I actually don't mind these 3D model covers, as the box art actually look like the games in most cases. My favourite examples being Super Smash Bros. Melee and Mario Kart Double Dash. Super Smash Bros. Melee has quite a unique box art, and it shows off the improved game graphics and really doesn't lie. And also shows off 3 of the new characters from the game, and in the back it shows Bowser trying to get in on the action. This is a great way to show off the new mechanics and characters in this game. Mario Kart Double Dash does another great job. On the cover we see a few new characters like Diddy, Birdo and Daisy. We see an item being hurled forwards, which of course represents most of your time in Mario Kart. Finally we see 2 people in a car, which of course is double how many people could fit in the car last time. It's telling us new mechanics, new characters and main features.
This is what I'm going to call everything a cover should have. I mean, it's everything a cover should have. And if it doesn't have these, then the cover will just end up seeming bland and samey. I wonder what does this nowadays.
Some more honourable mentions from the GameCube are Super Mario Sunshine, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, and Animal Crossing. I'm not saying the others are bad, but these are the ones that I've really thought fit the everything a cover should have. 3.5 out of 4.75. Sega didn't have too many IPs, so I'm just going to go their entire library as they all have the same style. So Sega's Dreamcast swept in with a no, God no, okay, pretty good, and why? Maybe this is why the Dreamcast didn't do too well. They kept drifting between old styles and new styles, and it really didn't work well in my opinion. I mean, I think Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 had a really nice design, and if they had done this with everything else, the library might have looked a whole lot more appealing to players. 2 out of 4.75. Sony entered their second console with franchises like Ratchet & Clank 1-3, God of War, and technically Crash Wrath of Cortex, as this game came out on the PS2 before any other console. Personally, I don't like the first one's box art, it just seems a bit too empty and bland. Number 2 and 3 have something going on, but I don't think they are that good. They suffer from just using the models. This doesn't really look good. God of War has a very good box art. It shows off the main character Kratos, it shows the mechanic of his weapons, and looks ready to fight. As well as that, it shows off the environment around it. Pretty good box art if I do say so myself. Next we look at Crash Bandicoot's Wrath of Cortex. No matter your opinion on the actual game itself, the box art does look pretty fine. It shows the new character in the background, it shows the new mechanics of the constant gimmick suits and main features. You may be asking, but Arthur, where are the main features? Well, so I have to come back with corridors. Crash's level design is all about trying down the corridor like levels. Yeah, I really had to push the limits there, but you gotta admit, it does look good, right? 3 out of 4.75. The boxes look good, but they had some flaws. Overall, good job, Sony. Now, there's one more console in this generation, the original Xbox, home to Blink's the Time Sweeper. Man, I love this game. I'm surprised Microsoft doesn't come back with anything in the future. The box art looks great too. It shows everything a cover should have. Another cover that I love is Conker Live and Reloaded. If you didn't know, then it's just a port of Conker's Bad Fur Day, seeing as Microsoft purchased the developer and has since used Conker countless times. Oh god. Anyway, I love this drawing cartoon style that you used on the cover, and it doesn't look like they just reused the models. If they did a really good job of hiding it. It shows of Conker being Conker, it shows of his weapons and his characters. That's not really why you're here, is it? You really want to see some awful box art. Well. Some examples include Shrek, Pulse Racer, and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Excuse me 1 second.
Bruh.
Good god, these make me sick. They're not bad, but they're still bad. Jesus Lord, you think we'd be able to you think we'd be immune to box art like this, but nope, sorry friends. Minus 11 out of 4.75.
What were those? I mean, some of the box art is fine, it's just Pukey McGee 1, 2 and 3 over here. They'll bring the whole entire score down.
The 7th generation, here we go. This is a relatively new in the scale of things, we are still in the 8th generation. This generation has seen very little drawn box art, so that makes each one of these very special, and I love it. But also because of this, companies have started to master the art of using their 3D models in a nice looking way. Sega dropped out of the console production this generation, and even though they still make games, if you could call them that, we won't be taking a look at them. So, without further ado, let's take a look at, good god, what is that? Okay, as much as I loved and still love Mario Kart Wii, this box art is kind of horrific. I mean, what does it show? Mario and Luigi, which you know is nothing mind-blowing. No cars, no main features, just...
This box could have been so much better. I mean, they did it before, they could do it again. I mean, I don't work at Nintendo, but...
My dad does. The good Wii box arts involve Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, Super Paper Mario, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Skyward Sword, and Go Away, Not You. I feel Nintendo has perfected what they had already been doing this generation, but this is sort of a bad thing.
Even though they look good, I still think they should have gone out of their way to create something nice and original. Something that screams, play me idiot! And it's what they've been really doing recently. I think that's one of the reasons that Switch is doing so well. 3 out of 4.75.
Sony had a few franchises during this generation, such as Uncharted, Ratchet & Clank, and Heavy Rain. First, let's talk about Heavy Rain, and I've never played it. I know nothing about the game, and from seeing this, I can't even process what this game would be about. Wet paper with blood on the floor? Origami Simulator 2019? A good box art must show what the actual game is. For research, I have seen that this is the first in a trilogy, so we have known nothing else about the game when it first released. So, if a random person in the store saw this, what reason would we have to buy this? It has a nice name. The actual art is alright, I guess, but it has nothing to show game-wise. Now, the Uncharted boxes are pretty nice. They show off the character, the environment, and a cool... This usually signifies adventure in a game, and what do you know? It's an adventure game. Hey, Heavy Rain, you could learn something from Nate over here. Actually, symbolise something from the game. Ratchet & Clank had a few entries on the platform. Just a few. My only problem with them is that they all look the same. It's not just because they have Ratchet & Clank on the front of them all, but they have Ratchet & Clank on all of them just at the centre, striking a different pose and nothing else. They look nice, yes, but not good. 2.5 out of 4.75. The Xbox 360, also known as Rare, where have you gone? I don't know much about Microsoft's more obscure franchises on the system, but I can say about some box arts from the console. So please, take a look at these three, and take a guess, and let's play a game. Which Halo is which? I can guarantee you can't tell. And that pretty much sums up modern box art for me. Bland and samey. You can't tell which is which. And that makes me sad. Xbox 360 games nearly all suffer from this problem, and it makes it hard to want to get the game. If each experience looks the same, then why would I pick up multiple games? And I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but it's kind of hard to with games. You can't open up a game disc. Xbox 360 box art gets a 2 out of 4 points.
So today we have seen the evolution of games and the box art as well, and the evolution of games is portrayed within the box art. And some examples can include Super Mario Bros. To Super Mario Odyssey, and The Legend of Zelda to Breath of the Wild, and Sonic the Hedgehog to Sonic Forces. Hey guys, Arthur here, and recently I've been craving some super basic Mario Kart, so what better way to play it than on the Switch's Virtual Console? Well, you see, now I have a problem because now I have to buy another thing with the word classic associated with it to play this sucker.
The SNES Classic Mini is a console released in late 2017, and oh boy is it beauty in a box. Not only does it look very good, the emulation on the system is stellar, and that is something we should be taking a look at later on. So today I should be sharing my thoughts on the system and seeing how it does as a console in general, right down from its looks to the 20+1 games inside. Wait, what? 20+1? In what world does it make sense to put that instead of saying 21? I mean, I guess it has 20 SNES claims plus one bonus one, but still, it doesn't make any sense. So now we've passed that first issue, let's get started.
Now for me, the best part about getting a console is, of course, the box. I mean, who needs fun when you get used to this cardboard, alright? But in all seriousness, the box is a big part about the console. I mean, who's going to buy a console that's got the Wii U on the front? So the thing I think the SNES Classic does so right is the nostalgia aspect, because the people who bought the original system growing up, if they see this, it's going to send a whole lot of memories their way. I mean, just compare the two boxes, they look nearly identical. And some people with me say this is a bad thing and it's unoriginal, and to them I say, why are you buying the system? It's a re-release. To me, it looks charming. I mean, they've even kept the same carpet-looking background. As well as this, we of course have the logos, the age ratings, and the seal of quality, and the usual stuff. It's nothing new. But then you push it forwards and see that, wow, it really is mini. I mean, it could just about fit in the toaster. Moving on to the back of the box, we see the games list, and each of the games are shown off with their individual box arts. If you watched my episode of box art, then you would know that I love SNES box art. It's so gorgeous, and the selection alone makes it better than the Virtual Boy. So, overall, the Virtual Boy sucked and this box is amazing, and this is why I keep it on my shelf at all times. I'm a proud owner of it. Well, with the shell out of the way, let's take a look at the insides, and by the insides, I mean this collection of goodies. The SNES Classic comes with a manual, a HDMI cable, a power cable, which the location is a secret in my case, and two amazing controllers, and of course, the console itself. Unfortunately, the console does not come with an adapter for the power cable, but this can be forgiven as it works off the power of the TV. And if, like me, you're using it on a monitor, then just plug it into your PC or laptop will work too. This is really helpful because unlike most companies assume, not everyone has a spare adapter laying around the house. HDMI cable, basic, yes. Every console needs to come with those, and a manual, and I mean, it's a manual, there isn't much to say about it other than the art on the front looks nice. Although I would have preferred some colour in it so it doesn't look like a newspaper just pulled out trash. Now though, let's move away from this boring old stuff and move on to the controllers, and man are these dog bones amazing. The build quality is superb. I mean, it's nearly identical to the original with some differences in texture, but yeah, this is the controller that changed everything. This can still be seen today with the dog bone like design being used by PlayStation and the multiple colour buttons being green, blue, red and yellow, which is still used by Microsoft. This controller is not only a joy to play with, but a charm to look at, and I feel sorry for the US who got this purple pile of trash. The controller itself is the same, but in my opinion, it just doesn't look as good. And now folks, the moment you've all been waiting for, the console itself, and I guess you could say it lives up to its name. The system is tiny. I mean, look, it literally fits in the palm of my hand. It's so cool.
It is so cute, it has such charm to it, like the little controller port flipping down so you can plug in the controllers properly. But yeah, what'd you expect? It's a Nintendo system, of course it's going to be fine. Oh, be quiet, Virtual Boy! Overall, does a good job looks and parts wise, and this is fantastic as most of the time it may just be used for the novelty of owning this magnificent mini. Then the only complaint I have so far is that the controllers don't use a USB method of connection. They use this weird thing that the nunchucks do for the Wii, and no, before you ask, the SNES Classic controller does not work with High School Musical 3. So yeah, great job Nintendo.
Now taking a look at everything that's not the games, let's take a look at the 20+1 games. Oh god damn it, Nintendo.
The first game on the list is Contra 3 The Alien Wars, and I've never really been into Contra as a franchise, but I decided to give this game a go one day with a friend, and it was so much fun. It's inspired by old arcade side-scroller shooters, and even though it's pretty hard, we make good use of the rewind feature to help us progress past the first stage. Oh yeah, is this a good time to mention the Spaghetti Savior? Basically, you can save 4 places in the game at a time by pressing the reset button on the console, follow the instructions on screen, and yeah, it's just very basic classic stuff. But what you can also do is take a few moments back in time from before you became a failure to make yourself a non-failure. Thank God for this save system, otherwise this game would have been ridiculous to play. Anyway, I can see why Content was on here. It was pretty big at the time, and the game is fairly good, so good choice. Game number 2 is the reboot of my favourite toe-wearing psycho, Donkey Kong Country, and wow, just wow, this is an incredible game. In fact, if Nintendo had left this game off the system, then that would probably have been one of the biggest mistakes in the company's history. This game was one of the later games for the platform, and oh boy does it show. The graphics are phenomenal, and I mean, just compare Super Mario World to this. Not only did it look good back in 1994, but it still looks gorgeous today. But none of that matters if the game isn't actually good. Well, the good thing is, it is good. It's enormous fun and quite a challenge. For me, this is the good thing about the Donkey Kong Country franchise. It's like the step up from Mario platformers. Donkey Kong Country provides the perfect balance between ease and challenge and doesn't get hard suddenly, but gradually increases in difficulty as the game goes on. I'm not going to go into much more detail than this, but I do plan to talk about it in full detail soon. But yeah, as said, this game is a must-have for the SNES and deserves its place here on the system, and I'm just angry that other 2 games aren't included either. Earthbound. What can I say that hasn't already been said already? People love this franchise and also this game in general. Seeing as this is the one for the SNES, then it's no surprise that Nintendo put it on here. I played a bit of it and I enjoyed it. Again, I'm not much of an RPG guy, so don't take my word on that. But I'm again glad it's on here because now I can experience it and learn why it's so highly praised. Good choice from Nintendo. Final Fantasy III is a truly massive game, and this means that I've not gone very far into it. To be fair, it takes 30 hours just to beat the main story. As a result, this segment will be quite short, and I don't know a whole lot about this game. Before I played it, it's quite fun, and I imagine that is more and more complex. Weapons are unlocked, but the combat will end up being very tough. And even at the start, it will require a bit more than button mashing to play. The story is fairly good, however, again, I haven't got very far, so I can't give much of an opinion. Overall, it's a nice game to include in the system and I'm excited to keep playing. This next game is actually a launch title for the SNES, and so those of you who know how the alphabet works, then you've probably already guessed what it is. Of course, I'm talking about F-Zero. This is a racing game that emphasizes speed over all other elements. The core gameplay is very fun due to this unique element, as well as all the other choices of characters and interesting courses. However, the big thing that stops F-Zero from being one of the Super Nintendo's finest games is the lack of multiplayer. When you think of racing, you probably think of Mario Kart, Forza, and so on. These games are all fantastic single-player experiences, but the multiplayer is where racing is at its best. And considering that Mario Kart is already on the SNES Classic, there isn't much reason to play this game unless you want a different single-player experience. But come on, it's F-Zero. We can't be mad at that it's here. It's a classic and paved the way for some excellent F-Zero games that came out on other systems. Kirby Superstar, another obvious choice, but a love choice. I've recently discovered Kirby games, and even though less challenging games than maybe some other Nintendo games, but they have some great platforming and interesting mechanics in each of them, and the Superstar is no exception. This game is one of the multiplayer games on the SNES Classic, so I recommend getting an Amigo and forcing them to play it with you. In all seriousness, I'm glad a proper Kirby platformer made it onto the system. Leading on to the next game... Kirby's Dream Course is a Kirby golf game. Why is this here? This is one of the games, and I can't get behind it. I mean, it's a fun experience, don't get me wrong, it's just, why this game? Why not Kirby's Adventure 3? Why not a completely different game? Why not Pilot Wings? Okay, quick rant over, I don't know. I'm sure this made one man happy somewhere, but I just think it was a good choice. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is the third home console entry into the Zelda franchise, and it's amazing. Everything about this game is great, and I can see now after playing the bulk of the game what fun it is. It's everything that makes Zelda great, and it's no surprise that it's quite highly respected in the Zelda community. This is one of my top favourite Zelda games, and I don't think I can comment on whether it should be on the SNES Classic. One, because it's the Zelda game for the platform, and two, it's just so darn good. Mega Man X is the next iteration of the Mega Man franchise after the previous set of games. Many people argue that Mega Man X is simply better than the original, but I think that this statement is completely true. It's just something about the game that makes it so much better to play, but in the end we're not here to compare the two games. I'm just glad that Mega Man got some representation on the system, seeing as he was a big part of that generation of consoles. But yeah, this is just a really good choice. Secret of Mana is a game that I haven't played, and not sure if I really intend to. I mean, at some point, I will give it a go. But from my research and other people I know, I found that it is another RPG game that follows the top-down perspective. It's quite respected by many people, and I guess I can see why it was on here, but again, I would have preferred something maybe of the other DK games, or maybe some other Nintendo games like Super Mario All-Stars, or Pilot Wings. But this is fine, I'm willing to give it a go sometime, and I look forward to when I sit down to do it. Well, what can you say about Star Fox? Well, it turns out not a lot. While this was a monumental game for the time, it was a good showcase of the FX chip. Nowadays, well, just look at it. The graphics really haven't held up essentially when you compare it to the next game in the franchise, Star Fox 64. The difference is massive. I must say that the gameplay is very fun, but I would much rather play some of the other games on the console, and some that aren't. However, it would be wrong to leave out the SNES Classic just because of how iconic it is and where it's taken the franchise. In case you knew nothing about the SNES Classic, then you would know that the unreleased +1 game, this is the +1. For the original SNES, Star Fox 2 has been finished up and slapped onto the system. This is the only version and way to play this game, and what a great feature. I really respect Nintendo for doing this, as they could have just gone and got a bunch of the old games from the SNES and shoved them onto the Classic. But they went out of their way to make a new experience for players. Unfortunately, it isn't unlockable, but it only takes one level of Star Fox to get it. A great add-on to the system, and I'm really glad they added it. Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting. I mean, come on, Street Fighter was gonna be in here in some form or another. The franchise was massive back then and really represented fighting games at the time. The thing I like most about this is that they put in the better version than just the basic version of Street Fighter 2, so I give some respect to Nintendo there. Of course, Castlevania is just iconic for the older systems. This game has been praised countless times for its great graphics, good platforming, interesting plot, and just good old Castlevania gameplay. I gave it a try and I had a blast, and I definitely recommend it. Whether it means on a virtual console system, or paying £60. Alright, next up is probably the most brutal game out of them all. Like Contra, Super Ghouls and Ghosts is inspired by the old arcade games that were designed to make you spend all of your money just to beat the first level. Maybe I'm just terrible at this game, but the combination of random terrain appearing out the floor, the enormous amount of enemies, and the jumping physics make this game very frustrating. If you do end up beating a section of the game, it is very satisfying. This is one of the more forgettable games in the SNES Classic, and I would say that Contra does the arcade gauntlet much better. Its sheer difficulty can be brutal to newcomers, and it does make me sad that this game takes up the spot that really should be for Mario is missing. Super Mario Kart is the first in the series of the Mario Kart games, and oh boy does it show. The character roster is mediocre, and that can describe the rest of the game really. It's still good fun, and unlike F-Zero, it's multiplayer, so that gives it the edge. And also, so that means if you have a friend, then you can race around for the pixelated track cup. Yeah, although it's never going to be my favourite Mario Kart, it needed to be on the system, as it was the first and started the fan favourite series that can be enjoyed by all. As you've probably learned from this video, I'm not the biggest RPG guy. I mean, I liked Final Fantasy, so I decided to try Super Mario RPG, and I'm actually really enjoying it, apart from when I got lost. It's still a lot of fun, and the combat mechanics are pretty cool, and it looks very impressive for the SNES. I'm really surprised Nintendo hasn't visited this game land again, although I know there are some problems with using characters and whatnot. But I'm glad this game was on here. It's a game I hear many people talking about, and inspired Paper Mario and the Mario & Luigi branch of games. So yeah, this is another great choice for the SNES, and I'm glad I finally got to try it. Actually, this game inspired Sticker Star. Worst game ever, get off the system. Super Mario World. This game is a must-have for the SNES Classic. If the system really didn't have this one, then I can't. It's hard to imagine a world where it wouldn't be on it because it's just such an iconic and fun game. I played the game a few years ago, but now playing on the SNES on a proper Nintendo platform with the controller God intended, it feels so right and it's such a great experience. I love this game. From its amazing platforming to the many secrets housed inside the amazing world the game is set in. It's just so good. It's another great game, honestly, and even though it's now 30 years old, it still holds up. And if you haven't played it, then do it ASAP. This game deserves its place on the platform. Metroid as a franchise never really got that many releases, but when it did, they were great entries. Most of the time. This can be shown off with Super Metroid. I played it for about an hour or so now, and I quite like it. Metroid has never really been a game I've played, like, ever, so I was curious to find out all about it, and like all the other games I've tried to find out on the system. And it's just good fun, and still remains today a fan favourite entry. Again, Metroid is an icon for Nintendo, so I'm not surprised this game is on console. Super Punch-Out! Don't forget the exclamation mark, because this game is an action-filled one. This game is pretty well known, but it's a boxing game where you play as a boxer. The animations are great, the gameplay and mechanics are pretty cool too. And I made some use out of the rewind features a few times, but it's a pretty chill experience and provides nice little fun play sessions. And seeing as Punch-Out was actually noticed by the Big N back then, it's a fitting pick for the SNES classic. The final game on the list is Yoshi's Island, subtitled Super Mario World 2, for some reason. But oh man, is this game fantastic. It was Yoshi's first solo adventure on any system, and that does not stop it from being a great time. The platforming is a bit different from Super Mario World, being that you can now play as Yoshi, and it's a completely new moveset. But I don't spoil too much because it's such a great experience. It's another great choice for the system, and a great way to top up the list of games. And yes, of course, that god-awful screaming from Mario is still here in all of its hellish noises. Of course, the games run like pure bliss. I found zero problems emulation-wise, and they're all at their top standard. You can also change how you see the game by going into the settings and changing it to a CRT mode, pixel perfect mode, and a 4:9 aspect ratio mode. This can be pretty cool if you want to experience the games as they would have looked. As well as that, you can add a cool custom border to the outside, but there's not many choices, and I just stuck with the speaker looking ones because it looks the best.
So yes, the SNES Classic is amazing. It's one of the finest classic consoles out there, and if you had to pick one, definitely pick this one. But right now, I don't really want an N64 classic. What I really want is the Philips CDI Mini, with such classics such as Hotel Mario, Zelda, Wonder of Ganon, and actually the Sega Pico sounds much more appealing.
Hey guys, Arthur here, and as you can see, I've left my room. I've come to explore the world, and what better way to start my journey than on Trash Watch. This is my new show where I explore the wonders of the trash bins, and today we're looking at Billy McBain. He's tall, has 4 sides, 1 lid, and we don't care about what's on the outside though. We need to see the goodies inside, and oh my god!
See, this is why I don't leave my room. You never know when the PS3 spines might come at you.
On first glance, this looks pretty decent and it's all organised, and I can respect this. Never mind. A good looking spine of a game box is crucial in my opinion. It may not seem like much, but most of the time you own the game, it's what you're going to see. I mean, who really organises games like this? Exactly, no one.
So today I'm going to be showing you my problems with the spines of games in your collection and what stops your collection from being perfection.
The major thing that really irritates me is the inconsistency between the spine designs for each console. For example, let's take the Nintendo Switch library of games. Super Mario Odyssey, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Super Mario Maker 2 all follow the same format. A nice, simple font which is centered, no custom logos, and the company who made them is at the bottom, which in this case being Nintendo. Now let's take a look at Crash Bandicoot, The Insane Trilogy, Splatoon 2, and Sonic Forces. We're going to run through each of these games differently as they each have different problems. Splatoon 2, okay, it's not bad, but are you serious? Why does it have to be in capital letters?
Nintendo, you made all these other games, why did you change it? It just looks so out of place.
Crash Bandicoot does the same thing, but has another little cherry on top. Activision's logo is the wrong way around. Let me elaborate. Remember how I said that these boxes had the right idea with the Nintendo logos down the bottom? Yeah? Well, Activision being Activision and being a psycho decided, you know what, let's make our name smaller and harder to read and just make it look like a product of hell. Hey, it's not as bad as Konami, and even though it's a common fact that Konami isn't the best of companies, this has made them truly sink to a new level of pain. Finally, let's take a look at Filth. Sorry, I mean the Sonic Forces spine. This is horrid. Why? Just why? I mean, who would Nintendo allow this to go on the spine of the game?
Honestly, I don't know why they make it like this. It would have been better with nothing on it. And to top it all off, Sega uses blue on their logo instead of making it nice and clean like the rest of all the other companies who make games for the system. Even Konami did this. Okay, Switch ran over. I mean, This game does have one thing that makes it better than Super Bomberman R, which did the exact same thing, except Sonic Forces doesn't have Konami on it, so you know, credit where credit's due.
The next thing that really annoys me is to do with the Wii games. Most Wii games were fine. I mean, there are a few exceptions that decided to attend Capital Letter Central, but most of them look the same. The problem that I have with them though, is for the games like New Super Mario Bros. Wii and Mario and Sonic at the 2012 Olympic Games.
Why? What purpose do they have being another colour? They're not even special editions or anything like that, they're just your standard run-of-the-mill Nintendo games. They have no reason to be like this, they don't even have a reason to exist, they're just kind of there. Standing out like a sore thumb.
Micro Round!
Oh my god! Nintendo DS spines are probably some of the most confusing and worst spines out there.
We have normal text, hard to read logos, capitalized text, non-capitals turning into capital letters, and a change in font size. And oh yeah, sorry, almost forgot that Super Mario Maker for the 3DS and New Super Mario Bros. 2 had yellow boxes.
And to top it all off, we have Nintendo using a different colour stripe when even though they used it for all the other first-party games, they decided to change it to purple, meaning a different party, which it isn't, it's a main Nintendo game. Why did they do this?
Okay, moving away from dummy dumb Nintendo games, let's take a look at the failures of the grown-up consoles, PlayStation and Xbox.
Sony and Microsoft opted in for having custom art on the spines, and you know what? I can really dig this.
The art is super neat, and even though the style is different on nearly every one, none of them really feel out of place. Unless Little Big Planet, Rayman Origins, or The Last of Us Remastered. Really? It really wasn't hard to change these.
These games were all made by big budget companies, Sony, Ubisoft, Naughty Dog. You'd have thought that maybe they'd have spent, you know, more than 15 seconds making these spines. Hell, even 45 seconds would have done the job. I mean, just literally just copying a logo onto a background, putting it on the spine, and bam, you're done. Now watch me do it. See? It's not that hard. I can do it, and I'm a dumb idiot posting YouTube videos every week.
Jesus, this is just plain unacceptable. Now moving away from the games segment of the spine, let's just take a nosy at...
And yes, it's just as I thought. You're diagnosed with unalignment.
Oh boy, you've done it again. Both Microsoft and Sony decided to not have their console logos aligned with each other. They're here, they're everywhere. The PS4, Xbox 360 and PS3 all suffer from this. And yeah, I guess it can be hard, and some of them might just be the art inside too high up or down, but still. Really? One final thing that I mentioned earlier, the PS3 spines. These are the reason I can't sleep at night. Even the original ones are disgusting beyond belief. Why would they change it? It's just wrong. Especially when you organise your games in alphabetical order like me.
So today, I think we learned that collection perfection is impossible. There's no way that big companies can make all the little companies conform to their rules. There's no way they can sort it all out. But, you know, believe me, I haven't tried. I mean, if you really want it to be perfect, there's always the choice of printing off your own, but this could make it look even worse and possibly ruin your collection even further. So I think I've covered all the major topics, and you know, there's nothing really else that I can discuss. I don't think there's actually anything I've missed, and hey guys, Arthur here, and it's October, so you know what that means. It's the season of the spook, and actually I'm not the biggest fan of Halloween, so to combat the season of the spook, I'm going to start my own season of the smile, and today we're going to start that off by looking at... Bruh. Actually, I'm good, thanks. I think the season of the spook sounds much more appealing.
Wordle Tree Adventures is an old school platform game with a catchy and unique art style.
Yeah, sure, okay, this is unique. This tree looks nothing like the debut tree. If anything, Zelda copied Wordle Tree.
Okay, for real. Wordle Tree Adventures is a 3D platforming Wheel Tree Adventures is a game. Wheel Tree Adventures is a software that you can control. That you can attempt to control.
There we go.
It was released on the June of 2014 to astonishing ratings, but somehow they've gone upwards from 1.5 to 3.5. I would say nostalgia usually has something to do with that, but what is there nostalgia to be about this game? A loss of your time and money?
Ah, the good old days. So this game is a happy-go-lucky adventure, and that's the complete opposite of Halloween, which is spooky, right? So today we're going to be reviewing Wheel Tree Adventures, I guess, and it's going to be split up into 4 different sections: story, art style, gameplay, and soundtrack. This is going to be epic.
From what I've played, I learned that you play as an unnamed hero who looks like a stump of a tree and came out of the ground after being summoned by a big Minecraft Deku tree looking guy. The land is going through some kind of water shortage, and you've been tasked with gathering 3 large fairy tears from each world to provide water to the land. And as the Steam page says, bringing back peace and balance and finally becoming the new hero.
What makes this even better is the final 2 paragraphs of the Steam page description.
If you loved games like Banjo, Kazooie and Mario 64, never fear, Wheel Tree will take you back to the good old days. The whole gameplay is a hybrid between an art game and a platformer that is meant to be played by adults and children and to bring happiness to all souls. I'm sorry, but what about this is similar to Banjo and Mario 64? You collect stuff in 3D? Yeah, I guess, but apart from that, look at it! Also, an art game? An art game? Brings happiness to all souls. I mean, for the entire hour of my playthrough, I only experienced a few seconds of happiness, closing the tab. The rest of the time I was just confused on what was happening, whether this game was a joke or not. I'm getting off topic. I mean, the story does kind of harken back to the old 3D platformers of yore, but still, it was released nearly 20 years after them. I think even the most basic of games should have a more exciting story. The story segment gets a 2 out of 5.
Wheel Tree Adventures is an art game of solid colours.
Super Mario 3D Land had more of an original art style than this, and that game was pretty bland in the art department. It kind of reminds me of how I see modern animation, generic and boring.
Wheel Tree is nothing special. I mean, I'm sorry Chubby Pixel, but I know you probably didn't have the budget or time to make something, you know, decent. But this does not look appealing. I mean, why did you think this was going to sell? I mean, obviously it did, but still, it's horrid.
Circle trees, the perfectly square everything, the unique enemy designs, the end goalpost. I just can't. This art style sucks. It looks like a mobile game. Hell, even a mobile game looks better than this. I've really wanted to give praise to it. I've really tried to, but everything looks the same. The biggest problem I had was that I couldn't tell what was evil or not. I mean, look at these guys. Which is evil and which is not. It's a mystery. Speaking of the enemies, what are these designs? They're just a mess of 3D shapes. What thought was put into them? Also, the best part of the art style, the level selector. I really love how it doesn't connect with the textures. Quality decision. The other thing that I hate is the thing with his bag. As you get more apples, which is one of the main collectibles, the bag expands. But it looks absolutely atrocious. Just look at it.
The best looking character design is probably the hero himself, which is the start, I guess, but I'd really prefer maybe the whole entire game had its own identity instead of just looking like Blandy McGee. The art style of Wheel Tree Adventures gets a good old 1 out of 5. It sucks.
In all seriousness, Woodle is not fun to control. Maybe it's because I've played too many great platforms that I can't appreciate this, but it just doesn't feel right to control, especially compared to supreme games like Poi. To be honest, Super Mario 64 controlled better than this, and this game was released 20 years after 64. So I'm just going to tell you about some of the main issues I had with the gameplay, and basically, there's quite a few. Number 1, when walking off an edge you can't stop moving forwards or turn at all, leading to inevitable doom, which couldn't happen in other platformers. Number 2, when dying anywhere in the stage you got sent straight back to the beginning, most of the time. It sometimes changes and it's very confusing. Number 3, this section of the mountain level. I died so many times because I couldn't stop running for some reason. Number 4, when dying, the camera sometimes glitches, making it impossible to see what is happening. Number 5, hitting enemies with the leaf is ridiculous. The range is horrid. I could go on, but I don't want to give much more hate on the gameplay.
So the gameplay on a whole just isn't fun. Woodle is not good to control, the gameplay and stupid mechanics make it horrid, especially the glitches, and that just makes the whole experience a drag. This is one of the main reasons I just couldn't handle playing past 4 of the worlds. it just started to hurt my brain. The gameplay gets another 1 out of 5.
Again, like with most other parts of the game, the soundtrack is really nothing special. It mostly revolves around the flute type thing and repeated sounds and tunes, and I can tell you after being on the same level for about 20 minutes straight, it really starts to grate on your ears, especially as it kind of tries to sound like Mario music. I think the best way to explain is to show you what it sounds like and play part of the soundtrack from the mountains level.
No, that was not a joke. The music for that level was just someone playing the keyboard on MIDI. And it repeats again and again and again. Please help.
Trust me when I say this, but I never want to play those songs again in my life. It hurts my head. The soundtrack to Wheelchair Adventures gets a 1 out of 5. It gets a 1 because it does try something, even though it didn't work. They tried to craft something memorable, I guess.
Yeah, that's right, I praised the game. Overall, the score for Wheelchair is 5 out of 20, and even though this is not a good score from me, I've got to give Chubby Pixel some credit. The amount of hours it takes to make a game, because of the inevitable hard work that it needs to be put in, it can take its toll on the actual quality of the game, and it really shows here. This game was not fun, this game was not great, this game was bad. So if there's one thing that you can take away from this video, it's that Wheelchair Adventures sucks. I mean, I'm glad it exists, I guess. It provides an experience of 3D platformers. It gives you a good time? No. It gives you a bad time? But still, I'm glad it exists. I mean, it kind of deserved to exist. I guess it was a trial run for Chubby Pixel to make a 3D platformer game, and I hope to see more things from them in the future. Just hopefully not Wheelchair. This series has never deserved to be touched again, and they made a sequel? Hey guys, Arthur here, and you know what I love? Yeah, every now and then I do let myself a little bit of nostalgia. So today, we're gonna play a game. Every time nostalgia comes up on the screen, we're gonna take a sip from this old bottle.
Super Mario Odyssey is an open-world Nintendo game released for the Nintendo Switch in late 2017 to absolutely amazing reviews, receiving 9s and 10s across the board.
Now, it's been 2 years since the game came out, and over those 2 years I've had a great experience with the game and I've played it many a time. So it's fair to say, I've got a lot of love for this game. Even though it's the 7th entry in the 3D Mario game series, it's only the 3rd true 3D open-world Mario game. What do you mean, you ask?
Well, Super Mario 64 and Sunshine were also open-world games, featuring large open levels where you can run about and do whatever the hell you wanted. Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 and Super Mario 3D Land and World are 3D platformers, but they are not open-world games. These games focus more on getting from point A to point B. Super Mario Odyssey pulls this trend right around and gave us what we've been wanting for over a decade and a half. Don't get me wrong, I love Galaxy and the 3D games, but it's just something about being able to control the 360 camera and do whatever you want, whenever, just makes it more an exciting time.
So today, I'm going to be talking about why I love Super Mario Odyssey and some of the problems I've had over these 2 years of bliss. So now guys, we're going to be entering spoiler territory, so please, oh my god, I can't hold myself anymore. Princess Peach gets kidnapped!
The main thing that I really loved about playing this game was the freedom it allowed you to have in each kingdom. At any point you could go anywhere, especially in kingdoms like New Dog City, Toast Arena and Luncheon. The open landscapes that these kingdoms in particular provide allows you, like with Sunshine in 64, to skip out moons you're having trouble with or just don't really want to do. For example, if you really hate the brutal boss fights in Luncheon, you could just full on skip it out and get other moons and just head on out of there. This provides a much more pleasant experience for players and I guess could be used for speedrunning strategies in the game. This is much different to Galaxy and especially 3D Land. In Galaxy, sure, you can skip some levels, but most of the time it's progress in a straight line. This again more so applies to 3D Land, where you literally progress in a straight line.
You see, this is 3D Land, this is Galaxy, and this is Super Mario Odyssey! Some say this is a bad aspect of the game, but personally I believe it's a really good thing, and who cares, it's fun.
Sometimes this game can be extremely hard. For example, getting this moon over here, it's near impossible. You've got to get to near perfect times. You mess up, it's game over.
Oh, phew, that was a tricky one.
Yeah, Nintendo really wanted to get to 999 moons, didn't they? Some of the moons in Odyssey are just like that one, just on a rock, really not hard to get. Some are buried in the ground, so you have to slam down to get them, but still they really went overboard with moons. And quite a few of the late game moons after Bowser are just for the purpose of having more moons. Like, hey look, 999 moons, bet you can't do that. What I think would have been provided a much better spread of quality quantity would have been made Cloud Kingdom and Ruined Kingdom into full kingdoms rather than quick pit stops.
This would take away some of the dull and boring moons that would just take a nap on the floor and replace them with exciting new moons in different kingdoms.
Leading on from that last point, man, it is so easy to play this game. Not difficulty wise, as some points can be quite hard, but in the sense that you can pick it up and easily find a moon or two to do. This is also to do with how people play the Switch, in between breaks on a car journey, or sometimes there are breaks at schools I guess. The way moons and purple coins in Mario Odyssey are structured allow for mini bite-sized experiences every now and then, and they also allow for long productive play sessions. This gave me an opportunity to crack the majority of the game in a week or two, because when waiting for stuff I just pick up the system, get a few moons, put it down again, and repeat. It's amazing.
Of course, playing in TV mode did allow me to waste hours of sleep at night. For those who like to play games within the night, it's perfect for that too.
Most kingdoms are like putting the Switch Joy-Cons on the Switch for the first time. Amazing. But two kingdoms in particular are like putting the straps on backwards. Horrifying. Ruined Kingdom and Cloud Kingdom are basically primarily used for boss battles, which is fine I guess. I would accept that if it was just that. But Nintendo had the audacity to put moons in them, making them a proper kingdom, and my god, they are awful. Unlike many playthroughs, it was kind of painful to go back to them just because they were so bland and felt like a waste of my time, even though it was necessary to go there.
I really felt they should have done something else with these kingdoms apart from just making them another kingdom. Oh my god. These may not be the best bosses in Mario history, but they are fantastic!
Torque Drift, Knuckle Attack, Cookertail, Mecha Wiggler, Madam Brood, Robo Brood, and the Road Dragon are the main original bosses, and each have a different method of being defeated, which is by using mechanic which you have learnt just before the battle. For example, using bullet bills in the Sand Temple is used for the boss fight against Knuckle Attack. Using tanks to break blocks in New Donk City are used to fight the Mega Wiggler, and the chain jumps in the plains of the Cascade Kingdom are used against Madame Brood. The one problem I had with them is that they can be quite easy and predictable. Especially Madame Brood, I swear I could sneeze and still win in this first fight. This is worked upon when you fight them again in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Spoilers!
But still, it's quite easy to predict their movements and how to beat them. Anyway, all of these bosses are creative and unique, and I'm so glad they chose to do original and unique looking boss fights in each of them, and no. The Broodals are just B-Tech Koopalings. It's like Nintendo saw that people didn't like the Koopalings and just thought that they meant design, because the Broodals act and work exactly like the Koopalings.
But if the Broodals weren't here, then these would have been some of the best bosses in Mario history, and hey, we've got all this favour that I've been mentioning Bowser. He's alright. Okay, I know this is going to get me some hate, but some of the directions they went with the art department, they weren't that great.
Don't get me wrong, there are some great looking kingdoms. Snow, Bowser, Food, Seaside, just to name a few. Even though I love playing in New Donk City, it just feels and looks odd. The main reason being the 10-foot people. Nintendo decided to make them look realistic and 10-foot tall still keeps me up at night. They even look out of place compared to Pauline because she's just a tall version of the Mario character art style. I've really felt they should have made everyone fit that trend. One other bad example with art style would be the Rodent Kingdom again. This just isn't a good kingdom. Everything about this looks off, and I suppose that's the point. But seeing this mighty Skyrim dragon compared to a tiny cartoon dinosaur turtle hybrid just looks so odd.
But the art style on the whole is fantastic, it's just in some aspects it doesn't look great, or natural, or good. Every 3D Mario game has its gimmick. Sunshine had Flood, Mario 64 was in 3D, Galaxy had the Luma.
Odyssey, of course, is no different and has a little thing called Cappy. You may have heard of him. Cappy is absolutely amazing, and I personally believe it's one of the best ones we've had to date. Not only does it provide the wide variety of enemies you can capture, harkening back to the epic adventure of Banjo Kazooie, Cappy also allows Mario to have the greatest moveset he's ever had before and perform ridiculous jumps and allow you to travel great distances with a single long jump and a throw of a hat. Great cheats and jumps are still being found out by the Mario Odyssey community today, and I always love watching insanely good players perform these fantastical jumps. The only problem I've had with him is that it can be quite difficult to use when you first start out, and it can be really hard to master him if you really want to do these awesome jumps. But apart from that, I loved using him, and I'm struggling to think of what the future 3D Mario games will be without him. Super Mario Odyssey is phenomenal, and I'm already daydreaming of future sequels, and even though this Odyssey is over, at least Nintendo left us one final reward from this journey.